Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 11 is here and I've got my running back rankings just for you. Numbers 1 through 24, the RB1s and the RB2s to answer whatever start-sit questions you may have for week 11 of fantasy football. We're going to take a look at all the players in order. I'll talk a little bit about some. I'll go a little bit quickly through the first 6 because you know what? They're pretty obvious. They're very straightforward and you're not sitting them at all. There's no chance that you have 3-4 of them where you have to make decisions, because if you do, you're playing in like a one-person league against yourself or just 12 AIs drafting with, on rookie mode. So why don't we just get to what we have to get to help you win your fantasy matchups this weekend. Thank you guys for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, and let's go.
He's a legend.
The Smiz Gang Listener League for Week 11 is posted. You got to go to smizzle.tv/links if you want to find that link. It's the only way that you can get in. The Listener League is not in the lobby because it is a no-rake game. DraftKings makes no money off of this tournament. They do it as a service to our community because the Smiz Gang has done such a great job of playing on DraftKings over the years that they allow us this $40,000 $10 entry fee tournament that's 3 max, the only way to get in. Go to smizzle.tv/links and you will find the Listener League. The RB1 on the week is Saquon Barkley, coming off of a 36 opportunity game and now scoring off against the Detroit Lions. This is a 2-week dream stretch for Saquon. Houston in week 10, Detroit in week 11. If you are a fantasy manager who drafted Saquon in the 2nd round, sometimes early 3rd round, you have been reaping the benefits, averaging 21.3 fantasy points on the year in full PPR. These rankings are full PPR rankings. So like if your running back that does not catch the ball is a little lower than you want him to be, you know why. Opportunities matter, and targets are worth like 2.3 times more expected fantasy points than each rush attempt. So just because you have a guy that's a really good running back, if they're touchdown reliant, if they're long play reliant, and they don't have that solid floor, I tend to like running backs that have more targets in the passing game, as well as everything else. So Saquon Barkley firmly at number 1. Speaking of running backs who catch the ball more, like Austin Eckler's on pace to break the single season reception record. 12 more targets for him last week, 8 targets in week 9, week 7, 12, week 6, 16. Like the path to double-digit targets from him is tremendous. He's also got 10 touchdowns on the year, 4 of them coming in the passing game. So 6 on the ground. Getting the ball a ton inside the 5-yard line, not as much as he got it last year because they've dialed his usage back. They've tried to keep him more healthy by keeping him under 65% of the snaps for the Chargers. They're going to need every bit of Austin Eckler this week as they are 6.5-point underdogs at home, though, against the Kansas City Chiefs. So in just another game, just like last week against San Francisco, where they project to be playing from behind. And if they are in passing script situations, the lack of wide receivers on the outside just means possibility of 10 plus targets for Austin Eckler. Tremendous floor, absolutely nuclear ceiling. Great pick in the middle of the 1st round that's paid off all season long. Christian McCaffrey, the number 3 running back on the week. The move to San Francisco has not hurt him at all. What it has done is it's cut down his volume a little bit, but it's not like he's not getting good volume. The first game, 27 opportunities. The second game against the Chargers, 20 opportunities, as they did cut his snaps down, his snap percentage down. Elijah Mitchell played a lot more snaps last week, and now you're in a spot where he needs more touchdowns to pay off. He needs those 6+ targets like he had last week, 9 against the Rams as their tour of Los Angeles ends on that 2 weeks sandwich by the bye week. Now he gets Arizona in Arizona. I'm expecting 20+ opportunities in this one. The touchdown expectation is heightened based on the offense, and he did get the vast majority of the inside the 5 snaps and had a couple of touches inside the 5-yard line as well. So Christian McCaffrey still really high floor, still very high ceiling in a tremendous offense. Play him with confidence. Derrick Henry, off of a down week, now gets Green Bay. Green Bay has been a team that we have wanted to attack with running backs. Against Denver, still had 22 opportunities, 3 targets in that game, just didn't perform. 8.7 PPR points, and this is the danger with Derrick Henry. When he's not rumbling for touchdowns, when that offense doesn't operate with any efficiency whatsoever, you get situations where Derrick Henry has that big gap between his ceiling, averaging 21.4 PPR points on the season. We've seen games from 26.5, 38.8, as high a ceiling as any running back that exists because of his big playability, all of the inside the 5 carries. He is our RB4 on the week, so it's not like there's any disrespect for the big dog, but behind all those heavy pass catching backs. Josh Jacobs has seen a ton of volume this year, and so much volume in the passing game. 8 more targets last week, 3, 4, 4, 5, the trailing 4 weeks. He's just paid off more weeks than he hasn't. A guy that was being drafted right at the end of, like, as you come out of the running back dead zone this summer, you saw Josh Jacobs, and a lot of people passed on him for other seemingly higher ceiling running backs, but he has been somewhat of a league winner for you if you drafted him as your RB3 in that spot, or if you were a hero running back drafter, a running back, a bell cow and chill drafter like myself, where I draft one guy, then a bunch of pass catchers, elite QB, elite tight end, and then wait for after the dead zone to draft your RB2 through RB5. Josh Jacobs has been a guy who has put you in league winning territory with his 20.5 PPR points per week. Alvin Kamara, same kind of boat. There was a massive dip in Alvin Kamara in terms of people that were scared of him getting a suspension this year. Dropped his ADP to like the 3rd round, and he's had some ups and downs. 2 down weeks coming off of the 42.8 point explosion week 8 against Las Vegas. Gets the Rams this week, and the Rams are in a state of disarray, let's say. They're losing a lot of games, terrible offensive line. That defense is still somewhat scary, but it does push teams to have to throw the ball more to their running backs, something that the Saints have to do if they want success. If they want to score touchdowns, they can't throw the ball to Alvin Kamara 4 times like they have the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, they've scored 10 and 13 points. The previous 4 weeks, they threw the ball to Kamara 10, 9, 9, and 6 times. They scored 24, 34, 26, 39 points. There's somewhat of a direct correlation, even though correlation doesn't always equal causality. It does in this case. You have absolutely nobody else to throw the ball to. Yeah, you got Chris Olave, and he's nice. The rookie's doing a very good job. Yes, you have Jarvis Landry coming back, but like, get the ball in your best playmaker's hands as many times as you can. Giving him 11 and 12 opportunities the last 2 weeks is inexcusable. It's borderline coaching malpractice. I've still got him at 6, but I'm going to have to drop him next week if there is another sub 5 target performance, if this has now become the way that they're doing things moving forward. I have confidence that they just have to throw the ball to him, and they'll correct things this week versus last. Now, as big a game as Joe Mixon had, 58.1 PPR points, like ridiculous, 153 yards, ran it 22 times, had 5 targets on top of it. Joe Mixon does not get enough credit for as involved in the passing game as he has been this year. 50 targets, 38 catches so far through 9 games. That's a big improvement over what he's done in years past. They are clearly utilizing him in the passing game. And in the absence of Jamar Chase, who I have a sneaking suspicion is coming back one of the next couple of weeks, right? Now, I don't think it's going to last that much longer because they didn't put him on IR like they could have. They wanted the flexibility to be able to bring him back sooner rather than later. As long as he's out, Joe Mixon is going to be a really high volume running back, not just on the ground, but they will continue to use him in the passing game. So that jumps him, in my opinion, over some other rankings that I've taken a look at so far this week, because you guys want me to take a look at other rankings because you don't like it when I have somebody ranked much higher or much lower than what you see out there. But I have Joe Mixon well above the field here because I believe that there are 25 plus opportunities incoming with so much usage in the passing game that it vaults him to this point against Pittsburgh, even though it's the second time against a divisional opponent on the road in a low totaled game. They have to keep Joe Mixon involved as long as Jamar Chase is not in. Jonathan Taylor is my running back 8 on the week, and here's why. Not because of the 66-yard touchdown that he ran in last week. That's not why. But because there's nobody else right now for them to hang their hat on. With Jeff Saturday as the coach, they are going to feed Jonathan Taylor constantly. If they're playing from ahead, it's going to be because of Jonathan Taylor. They don't project to be playing from ahead coming up against Philadelphia and their amazing defensive line this week. They are massive favorites in this spot. Massive underdogs. Philly is massive favorites. 9-point underdogs in this spot, which means that they should be in passing game scripts more often than not. Now, last week, their offensive line did have their highest win rates on pass blocking and run blocking on the season. Sometimes you're a little bit more amped up to play for the new coach. You got to refocus. You got to do things a little bit differently. I'm not saying that another 147-yard day is on pace for Jonathan Taylor. However, we know that he is one of the top 3 players in the league in terms of breaking long runs. We saw it last week with that 66-yard touchdown. He's still got all the skills that he had before. Just the team around him is bad right now. They're not playing from ahead. And until this game gets out of hand, if they can hang with them in the first half and only be down, let's say like between 3 and 10 points, Jonathan Taylor is going to have 15 touches probably by halftime. And if they're playing from behind, the trade of Nyheim Hines opens up more target possibilities for Jonathan Taylor. I don't see Jeff Saturday getting creative. Jonathan Taylor handled 95% of the running back snaps and touches for Indianapolis last week. I see that being the case moving forward, that he's going to just wear this dude out. He is going to run him 85% of the time. He is not taking him off the field, if at all possible, because he wants to prove that he is good enough to have this job as a coach. And when you do that, and you're a young coach, who might be a little bit out of their depths, you put your best players on the field and you just give them the ball. So they're going to keep it really simple and just get the ball to Jonathan Taylor all the time. I want to have Jonathan Taylor at my number 8, another player that I believe that I'm a little bit ahead of the field on. Dalvin Cook is number 9 for me this week. Tales of his demise have been greatly exaggerated. 26, 13.6, 18, 15, 26 fantasy points each of the last 5 games, averaging 17.4 PPR points per game. The last 3 games in particular, 17 targets for Dalvin Cook. That's what I personally love to see, specifically for full PPR, but I don't mind it in half PPR either. All those little points add up. Still has big playability, broke an 81-yard touchdown run against Buffalo this week, which really made his day, right? Like that's what brought that along. That's a 14.1 point touchdown right there. And it put him to like 119 rushing yards on the week. Just another big game for Dalvin Cook. Now they have a different situation. They're not on the road in Buffalo. They're at home against Dallas. Dallas's defense is very stout, very strong, but Minnesota's offense very there's a lot of difficulties in stopping that defense with Justin Jefferson on the outside. You have to focus on him, and you can't run like 8-9 in the box to stop Dalvin Cook at all times, because if you do, you're leaving Justin Jefferson in one-on-one situations on outside. And like, if you're going to do that as a defensive coordinator, you're going to have a bad time. It's not a great idea. Nick Chubb comes in here at number 10, and I can feel you guys pounding your desks. Like, why is Nick Chubb so low? Because he's a touchdown-dependent running back. Does not get used consistently in the passing game at all. Yes, he had 4 targets against Miami last week in a game where they got throttled, but that's not going to be the way that they operate. It's just not what they do. 1 target, 3 targets, 2 targets, 1 target. He's had more games with less than 3 targets than he's had with games with 3 or more. And he's only got 1 game with more than 3. Love Nick Chubb's talent. Probably one of the most talent, like probably a top 3 running back in the league on just talent. If this was the NFL Superstars, if this was like a Pro Bowl challenge where they had to do a skills competition, if he's your favorite running back's favorite running back sort of thing. However, in terms of fantasy and the way that they utilize him and the lack of opportunities, even in games where they are operating optimally around Nick Chubb, they still work in Kareem Hunt. He's only playing like 65% of snaps. If you're not going to get the volume in the passing game, at least you can be like Derrick Henry, or be utilized. It's not on Nick Chubb. You can be utilized like Derrick Henry and say, well, look, we're not going to throw him the ball all that much, but we are going to give him 30 opportunities a game. Nick Chubb has an expectation of like 17 or 18 targets plus attempts. That's not great for us. Like, it's good for keeping Nick Chubb healthy, but like, why couldn't y'all have just traded Kareem Hunt at the deadline and let Nick Chubb touch the ball 25 times every single week? He would be a bigger fantasy monster than he already is, averaging 21.6 fantasy points per game. But that comes with massive peaks and valleys, 11 touchdowns on the year. So you know when they get close, they're going to him differently than they have in years past. So touchdown reliant, still an RB1, but below all the other guys that have a higher target expectation with similar on the ground and inside the 5 carries. That's the way that I see it. If you see it differently, rank him higher in your ranking. Aaron Jones, 24 carries last week, 2 targets. They won the game though. 26 fantasy points. 3 of the last 4 weeks, greater than 22 PPR points for Aaron Jones. With the stunningly odd week against Detroit. Yeah, I guess he got hurt in that game, and like maybe that's why, but like he was just not efficient on the carries that he had, averaging 2.8 on the ground in the touches in that game, averaging 5.8 on the ground against Dallas, 7.2 on the ground against Buffalo. So I guess the better defense that he plays against, the better he does. He just amps up for him or whatever it is. Looks really spry at this point in the season. He has taken over the number 1 job. Earlier in the season, it was basically Aaron Jones 50-50 with AJ Dillon. Now, completely out of the, that's off the table now. Like Aaron Rodgers is fed up. He has had just about enough. And he has decided that, look, Can you just keep it simple and stop trying to be super cute and just let me play with Aaron Jones all the time and let me throw the ball like I want to throw the ball, and we're going to give Aaron Jones 25 opportunities. Seems like a recipe for success. He's the running back 11. And rounding out the top 12, the last RB1 on the week is Ramondre Stevenson, coming off of a bye week. 22 opportunities, including 7 targets in week 9, 23 opportunities, including 7 targets in week 8 against these same New York Jets on the road. He has just been fantastic. 16.9 fantasy points per game on the season, and that includes weeks 1 and 2 when he was not getting a lot of touches, was not as involved in the passing game, where he had 4.7 fantasy points and 6.1 fantasy points. The last 5 weeks, the last 5 weeks, 16 fantasy points, 21, 23, 25, 22. Tremendous floor, needs touchdowns to really have access to a 25 plus point ceiling. But based on the bye weeks that we have this week, and we have bye weeks for the Jaguars with ETN, the Dolphins with Jeff Wilson doing really great, and Mostert doing well as well, Ken Walker, who's worked his way into an RB1 role on the season, and then whatever's going on in Tampa Bay with Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette, he sneaks in. He's an RB1 this week. So Ramondre Stevenson, one of my favorite players this year to draft, where he was going between 100 and 135. We detailed him a ton this offseason. Great to see him for my hero running back draft teams. I think I have like 40 or something percent, 40 or 45% Ramondre across all of my best ball drafts. So hopefully things will work out coming down the stretch with as much volume as Ramondre has been getting. Moving on to the RB2s, Dameon Pierce, another player that we were suggesting that you draft, was going to be a possible league winner after we saw him run the football in preseason. He comes in at number 13. Pierce has really passed the eye test every single week. However, he's on a bad team. They are playing Washington coming off of their Super Bowl, the Monday night victory against Philadelphia. This could be a letdown spot for them on the road in Houston. And you know that Dameon Pierce is going to get a lot of volume. 15.6 fantasy points per game, gets tons of usage in the passing game, whether they're playing from ahead or playing from behind. He is basically all that they have. He's the best weapon that they have on offense, and really great big playability as well. A 44-yard run in week 10, 36-yard run in week 9, 22 and 20 in week 7 and 5. Love the way that they're utilizing him. We projected him as his ceiling being James Robinson's rookie year, and he has not disappointed. 85.8 yards per game, rushing on the ground, 4 touchdowns on the year, and great usage in the passing game. Tony Pollard sits at number 14 because I'm not convinced that Ezekiel Elliott is ready. And so if Zeke is back, feel free, move Pollard down. But why would you force Zeke back right now? With as well as Tony Pollard has done at breaking all of the narratives against him, doesn't do well in pass blocking. Well, based on PFF's rankings in pass blocking, he's like a top 10 running back in the league this year in terms of pass block grade. He doesn't do good running the ball between the tackles. Well, he's actually looked really good running the ball between the tackles once he was the main guy in weeks 10 and week 8 with Ezekiel Elliott out. Well, he can't handle a big workload. You know what? He had 28 opportunities last week, and he looked just fine. 24.8 fantasy points in week 10. In week 8, when you factor in the 3 touchdowns, 36.7, 6 targets. They did utilize him more in the passing game against Green Bay, which is what you want to see. We don't want to see that 14 attempt, 1 target performance that he had in week 8. Even though he delivered 18 of his fantasy points that week, half of them exactly came on touchdowns. Don't want a touchdown dependent running back. You want that high target. You want that high opportunity game. And Tony Pollard, as long as Ezekiel Elliott is out, should be exactly that dude. So I have him here at 14. If Ezekiel Elliott comes back, understand that I'm going to be moving him way down this list, probably to somewhere around like 23, 24, looking at where I've got players ranked currently. At number 15, Cordarrelle Patterson. Fantastic matchup, really high total. We just want to stream running backs when they play against Chicago. Cordarrelle coming off of a disappointing week, but hey, he's got your back, so that's nice, right? Like, at least he cares. A lot of running backs kind of don't. A lot of football players, this is their job, guys. They don't care about fantasy. They're like, hey, you didn't put up enough stats. So they don't care. They care about their team and their role and their job and like everything else. Like Cordarrelle Patterson gets out a game, he tweets out, hey, fantasy guys, I'm sorry, I scored 3 fantasy points. I'll try and do better next week. All right, at least we got that going for us, right? Which is nice. And now they're at home in a game with a total of 49 between these two teams, not because of the talent of the offenses, but because of the inefficiency of the defenses on both sides. Chicago was a bad defense that we wanted to stream running backs against before they traded their 2 best defensive players. And Atlanta, terrible defense as well. So both of these offenses, though they are very run-heavy offenses, should have above average days in terms of their efficiency moving the football down the field. So heightened touchdown expectation from Cordero Patterson. Hopefully we get a game where he has like between 16 and 20 opportunities as opposed to the 6 that he got last week or the 14 that he got in his first game back from injury in week 9. He should be ramped up and ready to go. Speaking of ramped up and ready to go, sometimes there's a transaction that just makes me wonder what the hell's going on. It's that gif of Ryan Reynolds where he's wearing the doctor's out. He takes the mask off. But why? Why did the Arizona Cardinals release Eno Benjamin? What happened there? I mean, all I know is James Conner last week had 95% of the snaps and touches for the Arizona Cardinals. And then after they released Eno Benjamin, don't know what happened there. Something happened there, clearly. But as far as we're concerned for fantasy, James Conner is now the guy. We saw what happened last year when he was the guy for this Arizona offense, and now they're still missing Hollywood Brown for the next couple of weeks. They just lost Zach Ertz, who was having a fantastic fantasy season for us, a great IRL season as well for the Arizona Cardinals. Somebody else is going to have to step up, be the next man up in that role. But James Conner is looking at 20 to 25 opportunities every single week, will handle all of the inside the 5 carries and get usage in the passing game. This is just a terrible spot for him. If they weren't playing against San Francisco, I'd have him probably ranked at the back end of the RB1s or like a really, really high end RB2. But right now he's at 16. It is what it is. Next week, it'll get better for him. Moving on, it'll get better for him, especially if he keeps that sort of usage. At number 17, Jamal Williams, the league leader in terms of inside the 5 carries, the most valuable carries that a running back can have. Now, he's splitting time. He only got like 50% of the snaps last week. Just Detroit's backfield's a hot mess. I hate it. I really do. I like Jamal Williams, love DeAndre Swift as an athlete and as a running back, but like I hate the way that they're being deployed. And that matters more. Talent doesn't matter in fantasy. I know that that's going to make some people mad, but like it does. Right? Okay, I'll let me change this statement. Talent matters in fantasy, but it matters way less than opportunity. Does that make more sense? Christian McCaffrey is a much better running back than Deontay Foreman, but once you start giving Deontay Foreman 25 opportunities, Deontay Foreman can perform. If you give Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift 15 to 20 opportunities every single week, they're going to be fine. Jamal Williams, though, is now essentially a 15 carry low usage running back in the passing game, which is scary considering how good he is in the passing game, or has been over the course of his entire career. Over the last 5 games, 4 targets total. That's it. 3 in week 8, 1 in week 7. No targets since that game against Miami, none against Green Bay, none against Chicago. He is a ground and pound, low scrimmage yard output guy, but has 1 to 2 touchdown possibility because of the super high volume of goal line carries that he gets, which puts him ahead of Miles Sanders at 18. Miles Sanders reliant on scoring touchdowns because he is also not going to be utilized in the passing game, but there's a lot more mouths to feed on Philadelphia than there are on Detroit. Number 19, the aforementioned Deontay Foreman. Absolutely love the volume for Deontay Foreman. Tough matchup. They're on the road. They're underdogs. Not a great possible game script here, but you can't deny the volume. The last time that they got scripted out, he had 4.1 points against Cincinnati, where they lost 42-21. The other 3 games since the Christian McCaffrey trade, let's just look at volume. 17 opportunities in week 7 against Tampa Bay, a very tough rushing defense in their own right. 27 opportunities against Atlanta, 34.8 points. And then the other game against Atlanta, 32 opportunities. I told you how bad Atlanta's defense is. 22 fantasy points on only 1 touchdown. This week he gets Baltimore. Again, if he was facing off against a more amicable, more friendly defense, I'd have him ranked higher, but the volume is great. He still sits here on the back end of my RB2s list at number 19. Behind him, Devin Singletary. Nowhere near as much volume, right? Nowhere near as much volume as somebody like Foreman, but the efficiency and the touchdown upside is much higher than Foreman's is. You're not going to get 20 opportunities more often than not out of Devin Singletary, but we get a great matchup against Cleveland, a team that we want to play as running backs against like as often as we can. They're the running back streamer team, one of the 3 or 4 running back streamer teams that we tend to go off against, right? So 15 opportunities last week, did have a couple of inside the 5 carries that turned into touchdowns. As all the other pieces are going off, Devin Singletary just gets to operate in chaos against light boxes all the time. Not a very efficient running back in terms of yards per carry. He's a little dude, but he fits this offense well. And as long as Josh Allen is healthy, he ends up on the back end of this RB2 more often than not. David Montgomery is in here for me at number 21, and I'm going to tell you why. I know that he is disappointed. 5.4, 5.4, 9.5, under 10 fantasy points. What? 4 of the last 5 weeks. Hasn't had a game above 15 points since week 2 against Green Bay. But we have an injury to Herbert, and we have to monitor that as the week goes on. If Herbert is in, I probably slide Montgomery like 1 or 2 spots down. I can't slide him much further down the list because of there's just not that many running backs. You got 4 bye weeks this week between the Jaguars, the Dolphins, the Seahawks, and the Buccaneers, who all have running backs, if not multiple running backs, who would rank above him on this list, pushing him down further. But in their absence, you have 4 or 5 guys that move out, and now he moves from like the 26th running back to 21st. Or even if Herbert is healthy, then he moves from like 28 to 21. So that's where I have him this week. If Herbert's out, he stays here. If Herbert's in, he might slide behind the next couple of guys. At number 22, I reluctantly have Harris. That's it. Like, it's just, this is, you drafted him in the first round this year. You drafted Najee Harris in the first round this year. And going up against the philosophy that I hold very dear, that volume over everything, he's getting volume. 21 opportunities last week, ran for 99 yards. He just doesn't have any touchdown upside, has an offense that doesn't stretch, runs against more heavy boxes than most other running backs do in the league because of how close this, they don't trust Pickett to throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. They don't. He's not a good quarterback. He wasn't a good quarterback prospect. He's a rookie quarterback who looks somewhat overwhelmed. He can make a play from time to time, but like, they can't do much. They're extremely limited offensively with him there. And Harris ends up running against 8 and 9 man fronts like all the time. It's very difficult for him. He did average 5 yards per attempt last week, broke off a 36-yard run against New Orleans. But like, man, it's tough. It's tough sledding for those of you who drafted Harris. He's in my back end of the RB2s this week. That's where he is. Antonio Gibson, more usage for him with the McKissick injury, but Brian Robinson sure does look the part, right? And Brian Robinson has shown, at least the last couple of games, why he kind of took or had taken before the shooting that job away from Antonio Gibson. But Gibson's role on this team in the absence of McKissick has been strong. 3 targets, 7 targets the last 3 weeks, 17 opportunities, 14 opportunities. He has gotten inside the 5 carries as well. It's basically a timeshare with him and Robinson, with Gibson getting more of the usage in the passing game, which is why I have him ranked above Robinson this week, especially considering the matchup against Houston, another team who want to stream running back. This is where these guys are sneaking into my RB2 list, is because of the matchups at the back end. The volume's not there. I think he's the RB2 on his own team, even though he may or may not be more talented than Brian Robinson is at this point, specifically in the passing game. But like, they don't love him. But I love this matchup against the Houston Texans. At 24, first timer. Welcome to the list, Isaiah Pacheco. I hate his number. He's wearing number 10. Very confusing. You can't, like, he's wearing 10. Sky Moore is wearing 24. Can we get like a jersey swap between Pacheco and Sky Moore? Make Pacheco wear 24 and let Sky Moore wear number 10. That would be much like it. Like, I start like twitching and going 6-minute abs in my chair watching football every time the Chiefs play when I see number 10 lined up in the backfield, number 24 in the slot. Switch your numbers, guys, please. What's more beneficial here for us? Isaiah Pacheco was rumored to have the talent to take over this job. Last week, he had 16 carries for 82 yards. Very explosive running back, even though we have not seen more than a 17-yard gain from him since like week 1 on the ground. The really promising thing, and why I think he's going to stick here as an RB2 for the rest of the season, he fumbled on like the first drive this week, like early in the game, lost a fumble, and Andy Reid stuck with him. No doghouse. It's like, nah, it's your job. You're going to fumble sometimes. Lock it up, kid. Get back in there. Carry the damn ball. And he did just that. We have had a nightmare with this Kansas City running back situation all year, with nobody playing over 30% of the snaps, nobody getting over 30, like nobody getting double-digit opportunities. If Isaiah Pacheco stays at 15+ opportunities the rest of the year in this Chiefs offense, kid's going to eat. If he's available in your league, which I doubt, you need to go get him like yesterday. And if you've drafted him and stashed him, or were holding him on your bench, congratulations to you, because the matchup against the Chargers is prime. And if he gets 15 to 22 touches in this game, he is going to absolutely smash. I can't rank him higher because we're not assured of what that role is, but he's 24 with a bullet. And I hope that he moves up in the coming weeks. So thank you guys for watching. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.